Welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. Have a tremendous guest with me today, Mr. Eugene Malinskiy, CEO and co-founder of Lazurite Holdings, which has an incredible new technology that couldn't be more excited about featuring here today. Eugene, how you doing?
Hey, I am doing great.
Fantastic, fantastic. So where are you joining us from? I knew you were going to be on the road. Where are you at right now?
Yeah, hey, thanks for pointing that out. So I am actually joining everybody here from Boston. We are here at the Device Talks Boston conference on an invitation from MedTech Innovator. I guess there were thousands of applicants for their mid-stage showcase. We were one of the 10 or 20 or so companies chosen to come here and present. And so here we are, and it's actually been a wonderful 2 days. We're co-located with a robotics summit, a healthcare robotics summit, and this device talk summit. So we're just doing pitches nonstop, and I actually just got out of another one. Unfortunately, we don't even get to see some of the very cool showcases that they're doing. But it's okay because we've gotten a lot of interest from a very broad swath of sort of the public, and there's a lot of funders here. There's a lot of industry people. So we've actually been very happy and very fortunate to be here.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, and I think it speaks volumes for just the visibility you guys have gotten from a product perspective. To have thousands of people submitting applications for that, and for them to come to you guys and say, "Hey, we want you to be a part of this," really speaks volumes for the buzz you've created in the marketplace, and rightfully so. That leads me to I'm gonna hit you right between the eyes with it. Bang! Let's get into this. Is the show. As I had mentioned to you when we talked previously, this is the show where the product and the company are the star of the show. The CEO or the founder gets to come on and tell the product story. And so, why don't we? What I'd like to start with is let's have you just give kind of a brief. Doesn't have to be brief, but let's have you start by giving an overview of ArthroFree. What is it? Just tell a little bit about what the product is and what you guys are doing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So, ArthroFree is really the world's first fully wireless, minimally invasive, FDA approved, FDA cleared camera system. And we got our 510(k) clearance in March of this year, which is fantastic. It's especially considering we got it after only just a short 3 months. So couldn't be prouder of sort of our team that made that happen, and all the partners we worked with.
I think it benefits to point out too that you got the approval while at the AAOS.
We did. Yeah, it was right because we
You're showing
absolutely
off.
we timed that right. We submitted it, know exactly when AOS was happening, and we no no this it was really actually just a wonderful
Serendipity,
coincidence
huh?
for us. Yeah. And being able to be at sort of the academy, it's colloquially called the academy, but being able to be at the large show with our booth, and literally from day one to day two, we changed all the signs on the booth because we had an inkling it was going to happen, but we changed all the signs on the booth from "Hey, non-FDA approved," etc., to now FDA cleared. Let's talk sales. So literally during the middle of the conference, we convinced them to run like an ad for us. It was really awesome.
Wow, what a pivot! That's incredible. That is truly a one in a million type occurrence. So really cool for you guys, and much deserved. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Let's get you can get back to
No,
kind of describing the art for free, but I think that's a fun little fact that the audience would get a kick out of.
and I appreciate it. And Anyway, so um, ArthroFree, as I mentioned, so it's a wireless surgical camera, but in order to make clear why that's needed and why that's important, and I think probably your audience may even ask him like, "Wait, this isn't a thing yet," and the
Right.
answer is, until us, it really no, no, and it's hard. But let me sort of go back, sort of, and explain the fundamental sort of state of the industry today, and not just today, but for the last 20, 30, 40 years, right? If you think minimally invasive surgery, laparoscopic surgery, arthroscopic, ENT, whatever, GYN surgeries, right? The whole world's been moving at some pace towards making as minimally invasive surgery and having as many surgeries be MIS, right? There's been this big push in all of these years, like let's not cut open the patient, like let's lower the burden on the body, and let's learn how to do as many of these procedures MIS as possible, right? Like there's now MIS organ transplants, right? Like mind-boggling, but
Right.
we've really have done, or the industry's really been moving towards MIS, and that's great. However, the underlying technologies and innovation in the MIS space um, have really not kept up, right? The docs have gotten better at doing the procedures, but they're using equipment that was really created and commercialized 30 years ago, right? If you sort
Right.
of think, if, and let me sort of draw this picture here. If you're an MIS surgical suite, which is a vast majority of them because they're just so easy to relatively set up, you sort of have a patient right in the middle. You have the surgical tower on the one side of the bed, and then you have the surgeon on the other. And on that surgical tower, you have obviously the monitor, so the surgeon can see. And then you have these various, well, let's just call them boxes, and they perform functions such as image capture or providing a light. And then from these boxes, you have cables that are going across the surgical field, across the patient, and into the surgeon's or the staff's hands. Um, and these cables have always existed, and it's kind of like crazy because the surgeons and the staff have asked for wireless for years. Like we've heard
Yeah.
them say, like, I've been asking for this for 30 years. There's really been no major change in how these procedures are actually done. Um, and so what we've done is we've created the world's, as I said, first wireless camera system, ArthroFree, to try to eliminate and try to start eliminating those cables. So let me sort of go back to this operating room and draw you an even broader picture. In order to do any minimally invasive surgery, and I don't care what subspecialty it is, you fundamentally need two things. You need a light into the body, and you need video out of the body, right? The body's dark inside. If
Right.
you're only making a small incision, that you can't see in there. So what do?
Those are your eyes.
Those are your eyes, right? Like if we stick a small tool in there, some sort of a scope. We pair that scope with a camera, and that's how we then do image capture, and we sort of provide like an image out of that camera. I have a light that shines from the end of my scope. I have an image system on the back end that provides a camera, and then I show that up on the screen. And then the surgeon, when they're doing surgery, right, they're not looking down at a joint, they're not looking down sort of at the abdominal cavity. They're actually looking over the patient, they're looking at the screen, and then they have these tools in their hand, and all of these tools have wires to them. And the problem with this is that for the surgeon, these wires, they physically get in the way. They're actually pretty darn bulky. They physically get in the way. I was just talking with a surgeon, and he told me that he does a lot of shoulder scope, so shoulder arthroscopy. He's one of the things he does is sports medicine, and he said, "Look, I have to operate really out of two ORs when I do shoulders because if I have a patient that I need to do a right side shoulder on, I have my room set up in such a way that I can do that because I don't have space in that OR with all of these cables and everything that else is in the way to get to the sites that I need in order to be able to perform that surgery. And then my
Sure.
other OR is set for the other shoulder, right? And that's crazy, right? The fact
Yeah.
that I have to sort of like the surgeon has to schedule a patient in a specific room and pair them with a patient in another room in order to meet their efficiencies. Like it provides so much of an extra headache to the doc. So, right, you have this sort of efficiency desire and really surgeon preference side of things. And then you have an entirely different set of problems, which is the safety. The cables right now are actually they cause a number of problems. So one of those cables is a fiber optic cable. It's actually a bundle of fiber optic fibers, and depending on how that's set up, that system is actually very dangerous. It can cause OR fires. So it can sort of melt through a drape. It can burn a patient. There's been in sort of in publications a number of sort of these documented fires, but there's also sort of a documented 600 to 800 OR fires per year. Um, this is something that the nursing staff and the operating room staff are incredibly vigilant about. So, right, they don't allow the surgeon, to just put the camera down on a drape, right? If that's what the surgeon does, their job is to like instantly grab it off of that drape because it'll make a hole in the drape and potentially burn the patient. And that's a whole can of worms you don't want to open.
Right. Yeah,
So
you don't want a fire in the operating room where
you
there's
do not
oxygen and
want to
everything.
fire. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then you have another set of problems, which is that the cables get in the way. So without getting too deep into sort of my background, my story, but I saw what sort of got me going down this road is I was in an OR. It was all set up. The patient was sort of under the drapes. They were intubated, and the PA had walked by, uh, tripped, and fell because of the cables, because of the cables connected to the camera. I heard that the PA was out for a while. They had to scrub the surgery. It was a disaster, right? And that sort of got me going
Wow.
down this direction. But the cables are a tripping hazard. One of my team members was in a facility, and they were sort of secondhand relayed that um, that facility just had a very similar incident. One of the staff members in that OR tripped on the cables. My understanding is broke their hip.
Oof.
And so now, right, so now you're talking about massive insurance outpace, you're talking about claims against the facility, you're talking and right, that's sort of on the financial side. But you're also talking about you're out a staff member,
Yeah.
right? And
In a
right
time
now
right
in
now
this,
where they
right
can't
there,
afford that.
you can't afford that. You literally cannot have people out. So it's a really big problem. And it's sort of everybody sort of ignores it until it becomes an issue, and then everybody's like focused on it. And then
Yep.
there's other problems with the cables. They're relatively difficult to clean. They're very long. You have to manually clean them a couple times. So there's a risk, a small risk, but a risk nonetheless of hospital-acquired infections. the cable, the one of the cables, that fiber optic cable, over time, the fibers in it actually break, so the cable goes dim. So you have to replace it. It's a non-trivially cheap replacement. It's a couple $1,000s. So there's all of these sort of compounding issues around these cables, but it, even though the staff and the surgeons and the facilities have really wanted wireless solutions to this, that's been an unmet need. And what we're doing and what we've done is we've created a product, ArthroFree, that eliminates those cables and is able to be used in a compatible manner, very almost identically to how it's used right now in surgery, but just wirelessly. It eliminates that fiber optic cable. It eliminates that data cable and the power cable that come off of the back of the hand of the surgeon. And so now you have surgeons who are able to operate the system without that encumbrance, right? So that shoulder doc, like, he can be in that operating room, perform surgery, and doesn't have to necessarily specifically schedule this patient for this operating room and then balance them with with a patient on the other operating room. The nurses don't have to worry so much about the fire risk, right? Our light source actually eliminates that as a possibility off of the light altogether. A
Wow.
lot easier to sterilize. And all of that being said, we are also seeing data come back that's showing that the setup times are quicker, the breakdown times are quicker. So we're actually going to be doing a really very interesting what we're calling post-market efficiency study, right? We don't need it to sell the product, but we're doing it really because we want to see if we can bolster some of our materials, and show that maybe if you're running a very efficient OR, let's say you have 4 or 5 procedures you're doing right now, maybe I can get you to a sixth procedure.
Right. Right. Oh no, absolutely. Everybody says, "Oh, OR time is, it's kind of a soft dollar calculation," but it's really not these days. These CEOs of hospitals and hospital systems, they understand. If you're shaving off 2 minutes, that's one thing. But if you're, if you're the aggregate amount of time saved per procedure, if they've got two rooms and they're going to do three or four
Yep.
procedures in each room, you aggregate it, and now all of a sudden you're talking about these. And a lot of times these are not super long procedures. We're not talking about an 8 hour heart transplant. So if you can shave 4 minutes off of the time of a 30 or a 28-minute procedure, percentage wise, it's a significant gain.
Right. And then you turn the room over faster. And then again, hopefully you get in another procedure. Or if you're not getting in another procedure, that OR time still has a cost and people that have to clean it and maintain it. So maybe we just finish the day earlier, or right, whatever else can happen. Even if they're not adding a procedure, we're expecting that we're going to give them their time back.
Yeah, and maybe it's not that Doctor XYZ adds a sixth shoulder. He might finish earlier, and then they can add a different physician into that room on
Yes.
the back end of the day. So it's not doesn't necessarily have to impact that physician, but 4 minutes of a 30-minute procedure, 5 minutes of a 30 minute, that's a sixth of the time. That's significant,
Right.
or whatever you're talking about. The other thing, this conversation's probably gonna be, bear with me because it's probably gonna bounce all over the place because I've got a lot of different things that I wanna get into. And it might be kind of tough to keep to the script, so to speak. But one of the things that when you guys first got actually, I think it was before I've stumbled upon you guys, but even before you got well before you got approval. But when I first heard about this, I wrote about it on LinkedIn. The first thing that came to my mind is not all of the things that you just said. Yes, those are all things. But then I started forward thinking with this of like, okay, so let's pair this now with a heads up display.
Yep.
So now the doctor's using a heads up display. We're going to put everything image capture in the cloud. We're going to use a wireless scope and eventually wireless instruments, because now that the scope is wireless, there will be an incentive for the instrument providers, if that doesn't end up being you, to
I don't
we'll
know
get
what you're
into that.
talking about.
We'll get into that later. Now all of a sudden you're redefining what the future of OR looks like. Maybe you don't need that big of a room to do that procedure. Maybe the doctor can now start doing that procedure in the equivalent of a massage room, where, you just have a Mayo stand, the instrument table, obviously room for anesthesia and all that. But you start talking about shrinking the footprint of the OR of the future. And now, instead of looking at it from the perspective of, are we going to be able to do 5 cases or 6 cases? Are we going to be able to put 15 ORs in our hospital versus 13, thereby giving that
Right.
hospital the capability of doing 8 extra procedures, every day, versus, or maybe that looks differently for the cost of a lot of these procedures are done in physician owned surgical suites, right? And they're wanting to maximize their profitability. Every dollar, every square foot costs X amount of dollars in real estate. It's gonna. I can't help but think that as the technology continues to grow with this technology, that the implications are pretty far reaching.
And thank you for saying it like that because you just gave me the opening to one of my interestingly key lines that a lot of people don't necessarily understand without the context that you just provided. And one of the key lines that I say is by providing the light into the body and the video out of the body, which our system does, there's a moment in time where we own that video, right? Our platform tech owns the video coming out of the patient. So everything else that you just talked about just builds on top of that platform, whether it's cloud, whether it's heads-up display, whether it's some sort of digital management stuff, or wherever we sort of go in the future um, with it, there is a fundamental base layer, and there's a moment in time where we own that base layer.
Right. Yeah. You're the access point.
We are the access point. And right, and we don't even necessarily have to be the ones to build. I'd love to be the one to build it, but we could pair with somebody else could just take our system and pair it on top of ours, right? Like that's fine. I'm open to all of that as long as they're using our system somewhere in the chain.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 It's definitely it's a great example. There's two things that I love about what's going on in digital health, and I'm excited for this episode to drop when it does, because I think the initial thought is like, why would he be picking a scope, a surgical scope, to be featured on a digital health program? And I think this to me is the quintessential digital health product, because it does two things. One, it's extremely it's an extreme example of simplification of a major component of a procedure. And that's, to me, I think that's, everybody says, oh, digital health is this really, I've said this on several episodes now. I think people think of it, digital health, as being this overly complicated, hyper complex, super technical, AI driven um, concept. And the best digital health products are products that just through technology simplify things. And I think that obviously um, is what you guys are doing. But also, another key component of some of these, what I believe are going to be the most successful digital health products, are going to be products that are piggybacked. Yeah, exactly. They're piggybacked products. I can see you're able to, like a lot of these software programs that are coming out, all they are, and I don't say all they are, but to marginalize it, but simply put, they're just an overlay over a traditional scan, whether that's an MRI or a CT or whatever. But because they're able to partner with that traditional scan and bring a digital component to it, it now simplifies things. We just did an episode with us2.ai, and their software is amazing. It just does an automatic interpretation of an echo, which, you know, is brilliant, and it completely simplifies what is a difficult process, a process that's fraught with variance. Two physicians can, you know, read an echo and give two totally different assessments. This is that type of a product where, you know, now you can start layering things on top of this and building technologies around it to piggyback off of it, which will then further enhance the impact of the product, I believe. So that's incredible that you guys have looked at it that way, and that you know, I think you've got obviously a super bright future. So you guys weren't the first to think of this. You know, I believe there's been a lot of people that have tried to do it. What was the challenge that the people that tried to do it before couldn't overcome, and maybe how were you guys able to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, so this is right. Hindsight being 2020, and 7 years worth of work, leading to a process where we got everything done in 3 months with the FDA. Right? That's sort of how that works. Is
Right.
um, so when we started, the team ran into a couple fundamental problems. So one problem had to do with, for example, the battery, and providing power. We wanted to create a power system. Obviously, it's a handheld device. It's a battery, although I'm showing it here, but I have it in my hand. Nobody who's listening is going to be able to see it. But it's
No,
a
no, they
very
will. This will be a.
oh, they
This will
will.
be a.
Oh, this will.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh,
If you've got,
wonderful.
and if you've got a, if you, I should have told you in advance to maybe bring one of the products, but if you have one with you, that would be
Of course,
incredible
I
to
have
see it.
one with me.
That is awesome.
Oh,
That,
yeah, of course I
it,
have it. I did not know
anybody that
that.
anybody that's got any experience whatsoever in orthopedics is going to see what you just showed, and the that's going to have one of those aha moment impacts where you're like, oh wow, this is incredible. But go ahead, I didn't mean to.
No, no, that's good. So this is the battery for our system. As you can see, it's a very small sized battery. It's also very light. But when we first started, we ran into this sort of issue of, hey, we need a battery system that is very robust but also very safe. And we also want to be able to sterilize it. But if they drop it, um, I want for it to be safe for them to do that. So it's one of those sort of like multi-factor puzzles that we ran into, and we actually got a lot of help as part of a grant to work with NASA Glenn, actually in Cleveland, sort of next door to us, and they were absolutely wonderful. We worked with them to do some of the calculations on the power consumption, and in essence, they showed us a battery cell and some of the technology that they were using, and they said something along the lines of, "This is what we're using in satellites, so you guys can just sort of take our thoughts on this matter and use it in medical because we can almost guarantee you that our use case is so much more complex than yours that
Right.
if you follow these sort of steps, you'll be fine." And we're
Yeah,
like, cool.
that'll work.
That'll work. Appreciate
no,
that.
no,
So, so,
no need to reinvent the wheel there.
no need to reinvent the wheel. We got it. Thank you.
Yep.
So that was one side of it. And then obviously since then, like obviously we've done all the testing on the battery, make sure that it has all the safety features that we need and all that. But it was one of those like, okay, we appreciate the help. And then so another issue that we ran into, and we sort of ran into this a couple times during development at sort of various stages, is wireless. So Right, our system, as we said, it's a wireless system. The fundamental sort of issue is that if you think of Wi-Fi, right, like how often does your wireless at home cut out? Even your cell phone, right, with 4G or 5G, right, that can have a problem occasionally. If we're in an operating room, we need to have a protocol and we need to be able to piggyback on a system that isn't just robust, but is also very fault tolerant, that is also um, something that can transfer all of this image data that I have that's live. And so this was a little bit of a challenge. And part of the challenge was that the FDA really dislikes Wi-Fi
Yeah.
for all sorts of reasons. I mean, none the least the fact of all the potential cybersecurity issues, the fact that you can potentially listen in on it, and then stuff like, let's say, Zigbee or Bluetooth. They just don't have nearly the bandwidth that we need. Um, and so we were sort of in between these sort of requirements, again, multi-factor sort of puzzle. And based on some work I had done earlier in a different life, I knew that I had a little bit of access to a military grade ultra wideband UWB, and that's actually what we ended up choosing. And so that was sort of the first cycle of the wireless problem.
Right.
The second cycle of the wireless problem is, okay, we have this technology chosen. We've done some validation work on it. We feel that we can get it through the FDA, ton of clearance in the future. But one of the sort of things that happens in surgery, as I mentioned earlier, is when that doc is in a patient, again, I don't care what invasive procedure it is, they're not really looking down at the surgical site. There's nothing there to see. It's a small incision, and then they just have a tool that goes inside, right? They have a scope, whether it's rigid
Right.
or flexible, that goes inside the system, or that goes or inside the body, and they actually need to they actually need to be looking at the monitor. So when they move their hands, it needs to be a live image, right? And so the
If
key
that image
technical word,
cuts out while
no,
they're
it's a,
burning or removing
right.
cartilage and they
It's a
lose their
huge problem.
eyes, yeah,
Right,
this is
right.
yeah, it's not
It's a
good.
huge problem.
Not good.
But the other part of that is the latency, right? The key technical word here is latency. It's not
Right.
just the safety of the system, it's not just the robustness of the system, it's not just the interoperability. For example, like UWB doesn't interact with anything in the OR, nothing interacts with it, which is kind of nice. But it's also this aspect of it needs to be a
Real time.
live, real-time image. And so we spend considerable time, almost a year, sort of creating the code base and the firmware that can sit on top of our hardware that could really do that. And so going back to what you were saying earlier about digital health and digital technology, right? Yes, this is a, right. ArthroFree is a manufactured piece of hardware. There's a tremendous amount of code that exists on the system
I bet.
that has to do the things it has to do, right? All sorts of image manipulation stuff, all sorts of wireless sort of like optimization, lighting, everything that our system is doing, both on the front end and the back end, right? There's a huge software component to it. There's a huge firmware component to it. Anyways,
Right.
so we had to solve for wireless the sort of second time, make sure that we had an image that was as close to live as possible. Very obviously happy to report that the vast majority of surgeons put it in and they're like, yeah, this is live, right? I see no latency. I don't like virtually nobody even says anything, which is kind of the best way
That's
that we
what you
can
want. Yeah,
approach it.
you want it to be
That's what you want.
yeah,
You want for it to be transparent.
you want it to replicate their native experience.
their current native experience, right? And the interesting thing is like wired systems, because obviously they're also doing some of this image magic. They're not instantaneous. We actually built a system. One of our sort of, and we have actually put a patent in for this. We actually built a latency measurement system that was a kind of a cool system, and we were able to show that even with wired systems, there is a on a technical level, there is a non-insubstantial amount of latency there, but we obviously had to meet it, and so we started with a place where we were not meeting it, and we got to a place where we did meet it. And then the third sort of major barrier that we had to cross was actually the lighting system. And this became for us a foundational baseline technology that we now call the Meridium light system. And the story goes like this: I first started, when we first started, we tried all sorts of LEDs. We tried even stuff like automotive grade and industrial grade, and we sort of ran into like this common like triangle problem, right? Like if it was bright enough, it would probably draw too much power off the battery, right? And I need that battery to provide more than an hour worth of surgical time, which ours
Sure.
does. Or it would potentially cause fires. Right now, I'm back to having that fire risk in the operating room. So I could solve some parts of the triangle, but I couldn't solve all parts of the triangle. And what ended up happening is after some experimentation and a lot of sort of thinking about it, and then actually doing a couple early prototypes, we came up with this laser activated volumetric remote phosphor system. I know that's a whole lot of technical words in there, but the point is that we created a light source that could solve all of those problems and do it in a more efficient way.
Is that the Meridium technology?
That's the Meridium technology.
Yeah.
And let me sort of, for just if the audience will entertain me for a second,
Yeah,
let me
yeah, yeah, yeah.
zoom out. Let me zoom way, way, way out. 1/6 of global power usage goes to lighting. If we can provide a technology that is some percent more efficient than even the greatest current systems, imagine that on a global scale and how much power and energy we can save.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Goes back to the same argument when you're talking about something like that. A small percentage is still a big impact globally.
It's a massive impact. And by the way, we think it's a much bigger percentage than a small percentage. And we're doing some work on showing that, and might even have a paper in the future about that. But in essence,
Fantastic.
we were able to create our light source. And for the audience that actually sees this, this is our light source right here. It is a cold light. So one of the demos that we do is we actually put it on the hands of like a surgeon, or but especially like a nurse, and like they instantly recoil, because this to them is, I
They're
just
used
burned
to it.
myself. They're used to this just being burning, and like, oh my God, I never have to worry about fires. You never have to worry about that fire risk. It
Wow.
literally does not get hot enough, right? And we've measured this. Like, it does not get hot enough to set that drape on fire, to cause that burn. And this can be left like on for extended period of time. It just does not get that warm.
It just doesn't get that hot. Yeah.
And so we solved that problem. After solving that problem, sort of came this like realization, the aha moment of, hey, we didn't just solve this problem for ourselves, we've just like solved a major like future fundamental issue with lighting. And so we have a lot of patents around this space that don't talk about the light sort of as part of ArthroFree, but they really are much broader. They really talk about the general technology and how we got there. um, and so we've been very proud of that. And so if you bundle all of together, and you also bundle the fact that our surgeons at the very beginning asked us the question, like they said, look, like when I showed them early prototypes, I went around coast to coast, showed this to surgeons, and they said, "Oh my God, you think you can actually solve wireless?" I'm like, "I think I do. I think I can." And they said, "That's fantastic. Like we've been wanting this for the last 10 or 20 years." And then I asked them, "Great, because we've always prided ourselves on taking feedback from our champions, from the surgeons, the nurses, the facilities, the innovators, right? Because it's very easy to build a product that doesn't have product market fit. So we wanted to make
Right,
sure we were
right.
building something that they want. And one of the things that they asked us was, we want to make our, and this is sort of the fourth part of this chair that I'm sort of building, that we sort of, with the table that I'm building, that like we were able to build up our system from there, is that we took this feedback, and one of the pieces of the feedback was, we want to make this system as easy and compatible to use as possible with our current environment. So for example, if you're doing orthopedic surgery, right, you're using something like this. This is a 4 millimeter, 30-degree scope. It has a coupler attached to it. If you're doing some sort of an endo or lap case, that might be a 5 or 10 millimeter scope. That's about yay long. Let's say you're doing a urology, right? That's going to be a flexible scope that's like yay long. But all of those, like all these docs were like, can you make it cross? Can you make it sort of cross compatible? And can you also make it connect to what with their existing, the scopes, the bits of
Got it.
equipment that they've already bought that go into the body.
They want to be able to put your light source on it.
They want to be able to put our camera and our light source on it.
Got it.
And then on the
Got it.
other end of it, and then the other end of it, on the receiver end, our wireless receiver, they're like, can you make it connect? If I have, say, an existing operating room, I've already spent a lot of money on that existing operating room. Can you make it connect into my existing tower system? Obviously, get rid of the wires, but can you make it connect to my existing EHR system? And so when I take a picture, I take a video, which is what I do right now, it will just save it to that system. That was a little
Yep.
tougher, but we also were able to do that. And so we created this system. So for example, like we don't make this, at least not yet, but
Right.
and I'll sort of call them out. Like this is a Striker camera, or sorry, Striker scope with a Striker coupler. Um, I don't really care. We've done sort of compatibility testing across the board. I don't care who makes this, as long as it's going to be a C mount with an ACMI, it's going to work with our system. And this is the coolest bit about this, we apply to the FDA for as broad of market clearance and indications for use as we could, and we were granted our broad request. So
Wow.
our indications for use are broadly minimally invasive surgeries that use a camera, and as long as it's compatible with our system, we can use it.
So your camera and your light source can be connected to a striker, ACMI, Olympus scope, and they can utilize that in arthroscopic orthopedic procedures. They can use it in laparoscopic lap chole, lap hernia, video assisted thoracic resection,
Yep.
any of those, any scope provider, they can slap your technology on it, do the procedure, and it will wirelessly image transfer to their existing tower or whatever the system is that they're utilizing, and sync with their EHR.
Yep, and then this is my receiver. This is this little tiny box. This actually is my receiver. This will sit on top of their system and then connect to their system. And then I'm providing that image data and the capture data to their systems. So, right, when I said earlier, like I own, for a brief moment of time, I own the entire imaging chain. I
Yep.
wasn't kidding. You have to go through my system if you want it to be wireless.
Wow. That is awesome. That is incredible. I was not aware of that. I thought it was orthopedic specific, but I mean, I used to work for Ethicon. I know how big that laparoscopic market is. It's huge. I think if I'm not mistaken, meniscus is one of the more common procedures in all of surgical procedures, but some of those laparoscopic procedures, I mean, they're up there.
And there's millions and millions of these procedures per year, every year
Yeah.
in just the US. Um, so, right, our target market, I think the number is sort of visual endoscopic market is $21 billion, and it's growing at about 7% a year, largely due to innovations like ours, and then also the sort of growth and the aging of the population, and the fact that so many more of these procedures, as I said sort of at the very beginning, so many of these procedures are now moving to minimally invasive, and the ones that have been minimally invasive are moving out of the hospital and into the ASC. And we're
Right.
even starting to see, I'm alluding to what you were saying earlier, I'm starting to see like these surgeries move out of even the ASCs and into sort of small procedure rooms and into clinics. So if
For sure.
you, if you really like take the future of what we're doing, one of the futures is we create something that now you can do the surgery wirelessly in just your doctor's office, right? Depending on what procedure it is, but it's now an office-based procedure, right?
Yep.
And so there's this entire,
Insurance loves that.
and then keep going, right? What's beyond that office? Maybe it's a mobile clinic. I have some patients who are really unable to move, or whatever the case may be. So there's this entire sort of spectrum that, like, some of these are just at the start, some of these are very sort of starting to push out, and we are able to come in anywhere in that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. It really disrupts the entire delivery care network. I mean, the
Absolutely.
entire delivery care. Yeah, no, and insurance loves anything that's less invasive, faster ambulation. I call those products the Obamacare products because Obamacare really shifted everything. To it used to be when I grew up in the business, and I've probably told this story 100 times, if not 1,000. When I grew up in the business, all my mentors told me stay on the therapeutic side. There's no money in diagnostics. Up until Obamacare, that was true, and then Obamacare started shifting things because the hot technologies are always going to be what the insurance CMS is going to reimburse for, right? They're going to direct care based on reimbursement. It's just it's like a rat with cheese. You move the cheese and they move accordingly. And so when Obamacare came out, it was low readmissions, faster ambulation, moving the care from the acute care setting to now it's even moving into the home care setting, to
Yep.
your point, a mobile lab or whatever. All of those types of initiatives are gonna they're going to be supported not only from a administration or a regulation standpoint, but also from an insurance reimbursement standpoint. They're just going to drive things further and further minimally invasively. So the impact of it, really, it's tough to kind of really grasp just how big this really could be. When you guys started this, did you initially, was that the goal of like, hey, we want to do all video assisted surgery, or was it just, was ortho kind of the target market?
So the answer is yes, but in a weird way. So just because of my prior history, I had a big exposure to ortho. Um, we really did start with ortho. That incident that I mentioned in the operating room was an ortho surgery that
Yeah.
got scrubbed. We're very close to ortho because a lot of our investors and champions are ortho. But there's another thing that sort of is being left unsaid. A lot of ortho drives a lot of purchasing for visualization systems.
Because of the volume of procedures.
Whether just because of the volume of the procedures and really it's at the profitability, right? Orthodox are consistently the number one, two, or three reimbursed sort of surgeons. They provide a lot of sort of value to the hospital. They do a tremendous amount of these procedures in ASCs. I think it's like 70% are now done in either independent or captured ASCs. So
They're a
there's
higher
a
animal on the food chain of a hospital.
yes, yes,
And that just, I mean, that is what it is. I don't think that's saying anything negative. I mean, it's any, it's any business. If you
right.
look at a sales organization, the sales rep that's selling $5 million worth of stuff is going to carry more weight. His opinion is going to carry more weight than the sales rep who's selling $1 million worth. It's just
Right.
it's the natural architecture of a company. So I think that, yeah, no, there's no, I don't think there's any debate about that. But yeah,
Right.
so that kind of was initially, because when you're going to sell a product, you want to sell to somebody who's going to have the influence to be able to get it in.
And that's so there are initial target market. There's thousands of operating rooms around the country, much less around the world. In just the U.S., a ton of procedures happen in these operating rooms, and then very shortly thereafter, right? So our we're delivering our first product off of our manufacturing line this summer. So right, we have our FDA approval, FDA clearance. And with that, we are now building up our sales force. We are doing inside plus outside sales, so internal sales and channel partners. We're putting together a number of partnerships. We actually announced one with LG. So we'll actually be able to use LG's 4K monitors, which really make our image look amazing.
That's great.
Um, which is so if a facility needs that, we're putting together a couple other things in that same vein, and we are shipping and selling this summer.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I commented on, the KOLs usually, are early on adopters of this type of technology a lot of
Yep,
times. And I commented on a doctor who he's as big as it gets in orthopedics, Ira Kirschenbaum.
yep,
He had a post about your technology on LinkedIn. And I commented on it. I think it was yesterday or this morning. That was an aha moment for me of like, wow, this thing really has gotten big quick because, when to get a KOL like that on your side, isn't easy, but to also get them, on your side and have them be so aware of, he was talking about just, the same thing. It was just, this is kind of like one of those, why didn't we think about this first? Or why didn't we do this first type
right,
products?
right.
So yeah, no, I can, absolutely. Those are going to be the guys that are going to drive it into these big systems and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think what Ira was actually commenting on was that we actually just got our first approved publication in Journal of Orthopedic Experience, and the article really is sort of here's the past of arthroscopy, and here's the future of arthroscopy, and the future of arthroscopy very clearly is wireless, and I think so. So we're definitely doing a little bit of media work around that, but peer-reviewed article. We've been very sort of fortunate to get it published with Dr. Williams and Dr. Gupta sort of being the authors on that. And so yes, it's kind of great. And so we're getting KOLs. And the one thing I'll mention as part of sort of this discussion on market entry, we have more than 70 physician investors, right? These are all the way from the very first sort of funding rounds, all the way to
Yep.
now. These are the folks who I showed crappy, terrible prototypes that look nothing like what the system is right now. And I really described sort of a vision and a future that we just kind of talked through. And
Right.
but at that time, it was a vision and a future and really not much more. And they said, yeah, well, of course. And the second part was not just of course, but we want this, we've been waiting for this. And then the third part of that was for some of them, I'll even back this company, right? Which has
Yeah.
been wonderful, and to have them sort of as part of our champions. And then we obviously went back to them over the years to make sure we're on the right track, and hey, help us on this design and all that. Um, but we have a tremendous amount of just sort of built-in champions who have been with us from the start and love what we're doing, and even beyond what we're doing now, just can't wait for where we're going.
Yeah, well, it's because it's not, it's everything again that you stack, you said on top of it is going to further impact their ability to do their job every day.
Yep.
And so, why wouldn't they want to be involved in that? Why wouldn't they want to invest in that? That's, I mean,
Yes.
nobody can understand the use case better than them.
Yeah, because they're in that operating room every single day. I think as maybe one of the last things here on this podcast is that I can leave you with is a very sort of common thing that happens is we'll walk into a facility, right? And say we're doing like a lab. We'll walk into the facility and there'll be, say, 5 or 6 surgeons, some younger, some earlier career folks, some mid-career, some later career guys and gals. The early ones are like, they're like frustrated that there's even wires, right? They all grew up on wireless everything. So
Right.
so for them,
Right.
like we honestly don't even show the system. Like we'll tell them, hey, we have a wireless camera. It's called ArthroFree. They're like, well, of course you do.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, do you want to see it? Do you want to go try it? They're like, no. Like I
Yeah.
it'll work. You solved the
Yeah.
problem. You solved my problem. Thank you. And then obviously the mid-career ones and the late career ones, obviously they want to get it in and see a demo and then work with it. But on occasion, right, we'll get sort of the surgeon who's like, I think this is great. I see what you guys are doing, and I agree that this is the future. But I've been sort of doing what I've been doing for the last like 30 years. I I'm I'm pretty good at what I do, I would think, and of course they are. And this is great, but probably not for my generation. And we're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, whatever. And then when we do our follow-up in a couple days or a week, we'll almost inevitably sort of get that surgeon. And the line that comes out is, and then I had surgery the next day, and I was in that operating room, and those wires and knowing that there's a wireless solution drove me insane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I, the fact that I got to try your system, and now I know there's an alternative to what I have to do every single day. They're
No
like,
going
yeah,
back.
okay. No, no, they're like, I can't go. You can't go back to it. It's like going from a wireless phone back to a wired phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've seen it in surgery a million times. The doctor's like pulling on the scope to get the cord free and dealing with this and that. Yeah, no,
The cord drops on the floor.
yeah, yeah. It's prehistoric. It's prehistoric. It's no, this is the market. The time is now. Like you said, it should have been done a long time ago. I want to be sensitive to your time. You've been really generous with what you've given us thus far. I just, you know, I always like to give you guys an opportunity. People are going to see this if they want to be involved, if they want to, maybe they want to come work for the company. Maybe it's a physician that says, "Hey, I need to get this technology in my hands." What's the best, call to action? How can people reach out? We can whatever medium you provide. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. And then the only other thing I would say is, let's definitely stay in touch because as undoubtedly, I have a feeling there's going to be some additional follow up products that come out and whatnot. I'd love to, bring you back at some point and we can do an update to the show and highlight the new things that you have going on at that point. But if people want to reach out, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, honestly, the easiest way to get in touch is just contact at lazurite.co. That is Lazurite. Lazurite.co. So contact at lazurite.co gets you into the email box that we check every single day. Our website has a contact form, so lazurite.co. That will actually go to almost the same place. So feel free to fill out that out. And sort of you just mentioned like we're always hiring. We're growing the team right now, and we're going to keep growing as we both scale our sales, but also our engineering and product development. And we think we have a very bright future. And we're always sort of looking for conversations, partnerships. And then the other call to action is if you're in a facility or you're connected to somebody who's in a facility which is doing minimally invasive procedures, find out if this is something they may be interested in, reach out to us. Our team will be more than happy to set up demos, and then full sort of on-site in OR evaluations for a few days or a week. That's where we're at right now, and we have a tremendous amount of requests for those, and which is wonderful because that's just going to sort of fill up and only keep going. And then we're going to be delivering, as I said, we're delivering product starting from this summer. So a couple of their calls to action is contact us almost pretty much for anything. But yes, we're absolutely hiring, and we're absolutely trying to get into new facilities and get ArthroFree into they're really the hands of as many surgeons and their staff as possible,
Yeah.
right? Like, let's make this a safer, more efficient, more productive operating room, and we're providing that.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. It's a game changer, no doubt. Thank you again for making the time. I know you're busy at that conference. So I really appreciate you making the time to come onto the show. And definitely look forward to staying in touch and watching you guys thrive moving forward. I can't wait to see how the launch goes, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy insane success. That's a wrap, and thank you again to the audience for joining in, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Mike.